Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today, going to do the what's next on the undefeated and newly crowned unified heavyweight champion of the world, Oleksandr Usyk, coming off of his monster 12-round unanimous decision victory over Anthony Joshua as he became the unified heavyweight champion of the world. Now, Usyk was had already been the undisputed cruiserweight champion of the world, won the World Boxing Super Series back in 2018. Had a couple fights, at heavyweight. Most notably Derek Chisora last year, but this year decided to step it up and go and cash in on his mandatory against Anthony Joshua. And he proved everybody wrong. I thought it was a mistake to want Joshua that quick. I thought he should have let Joshua go after other people and he get his feet wet more at the heavyweight division. But he wanted Joshua. He knew something that we didn't. And he got Joshua to fight his fight. And he fought fantastic. He's a great, great fighter. And he now is the unified heavyweight champion. So the big question now is what's next for Oleksandr Usyk? Well, if you guys have been paying attention, you all know the same thing that I do, that it's almost for sure that they're going to rematch. Anthony Joshua has a rematch clause in his contract. He lost this fight. He fought better in this fight than he did against Andy Ruiz when he lost the first time. So I highly doubt Anthony Joshua is not going to come out and fight Usyk again. I would be very surprised if he doesn't cash in on his automatic rematch clause and go after his world title. I think he was in the fight. I believe that he knows that a lot of people know that he can make adjustments and win this fight, and I think he's going to try to do that. So we'll see what happens, but a big win for a big win for Oleksandr Usyk, and let's see what's next after the Anthony Joshua fight, the rematch, if he wins. I'm not going to discuss if he loses, really, because we really don't know what a guy's going to do after he loses unless he has an automatic rematch clause. So say he fights Anthony Joshua, and let's get a third fight with Joshua out of the way. Say he fights Joshua. The only way a third fight would happen after their rematch would be, in my opinion, if Joshua were to win and then want to fight Usyk again. But I really don't think there's going to be a rematch clause for a third fight. I don't see that happening. And, I don't think Anthony Joshua would want to give him a rematch if he were to beat Usyk the second time, especially if he beats him convincingly. But you never know. So let's run through the rest of the top 10. We start with the fight that most people would want to see against undefeated 6'9" Tyson Fury, the WBC champion. Now, these guys hold all the belts right now. So would that fight be possible next? Well, Fury's got to get by Deontay Wilder on Saturday of this week. He's got to get by him in their third fight. And the WBC has already come out and said that they would allow an undisputed title fight, before a mandatory, but that's not likely going to happen because, as I said, Usyk's going to fight Joshua. So if Usyk were to beat Joshua and Fury beats Wilder and then beats Dillian White in a mandatory defense, do I think it's possible Usyk and Fury could get together next year? Absolutely. It probably wouldn't be for all four belts, though, to be honest. If Usyk, I think that the governing bodies are going to allow the rematch with Usyk and Joshua without blocking that for mandatory defenses. But after that, the winner's going to have to make a mandatory. And there's probably going to be two on the table. See, Usyk was a WBO mandatory, so that mandatory will probably not be due till the end of next year, early 2023, to be honest. You're probably not going to see another WBO mandatory title defense in the heavyweight division. But the WBA has ordered, all their regular champions to fight their super champions. Usyk would be the super champ now. If he beats Joshua in the rematch, then undefeated regular champion Trevor Bryan is sitting there waiting. And I think that fight's going to get ordered after the rematch. I really do. So he might have to make a defense against him, or he might have to fight whoever the IBF mandatory is. And I think the IBF is going to get a mandatory challenger by the end of this year. I think they're going to have a mandatory title fight. They're going to have a challenger, and they're going to order that fight following Usyk and Joshua too. So that's the big question. Does Usyk, to fight Tyson Fury, does he give up, in the second half of next year, does he give up 2 belts to unify belts with Fury? I think he would, because it's a big fight, and for Usyk, it's about legacy. But you know what? He might say fuck it and say no. I want it to be for all 4 belts, so I'm gonna go make 2 mandatories, get those out of the way, and then I'll see I'll see Tyson Fury in 2023. So that's the thing. We really don't know. That's the whole point of it. But we'll see what happens. I hope that fight's a possibility for next year. I just don't think it's going to be for Undisputed, and I think that might ruin it, to be honest. But you never know. We'll see. They will be the top 2 guys, though, if that's the option by next year. If both win their fights. If Usyk beats Joshua again, and Fury beats Wilder in a 3rd fight, and then beats Dillian White in the mandatory defense, they're going to be the top 2 dogs no matter what heading into the second half of next year. And it's a makeable fight, so why not get it done? But we got to wait and see. Next up would be Deontay Wilder. If Wilder beats Fury in their 3rd fight happening this Saturday, and then I absolutely believe Wilder beats Dillian White in a mandatory defense, and if Usyk beats Joshua, could these guys lock up in the second half of next year? I mean, again, I don't believe it would be for all 4 belts. I think Usyk would have to give up a couple belts. Usyk is with Eddie Hearn in Matchroom, working with the PBC. Can they get that fight done? It's tough to say. The PBC doesn't like to cross the street a lot unless it's a mandatory fight. So it's really hard to say if that fight is possible or not. I would love to see it. I think they should do it, but I don't know if they will do it. That's my God's honest opinion. So we'll see what happens. I think it's possible. But, again, it's tough with the PBC. They really are a tough company to work with and across the street. So you never know. But I would love to see the fight. Personally, I think Wilder's going to lose, but I do think he has that big puncher's chance to pull off the upset. So we'll see if that fight's still available for next year. Number 4 is Dillian White. Dillian White, I don't believe he's going to get by the mandatory. I think Usyk is going to fight Joshua. Win or lose, I think Dillian White's going to be out of the equation. If Usyk were to win, would Dillian White still be there? I mean, if Dillian White upsets Fury or Wilder, which I think he's got a chance, but not a great chance to beat either one of those guys, then maybe this fight will be there. They're both promoted by Eddie Hearn. I'm sure Eddie Hearn would love to make the fight. But I don't see it happening, to be honest. But you never know. It could be. But the second half of next year, I don't see Usyk and White as the top 2 heavyweights in the world and a chance for this fight to happen. I'm not seeing it. Next, Andy Ruiz, the former unified champ. Would that fight be possible? Depends on if Andy Ruiz comes out of a big fight or not, or if he's some kind of a mandatory. I mean, I don't see him being a mandatory challenger the second half of next year. He could be, but it depends on if he goes out and gets a monster win, like beats Luis Ortiz, which he's been calling out. He's been saying he wants that fight. He gets a win like that, and Usyk comes out of the Joshua fight and he can't land possibly the winner of Fury, Wilder, or Dillian White of that trio, then I think Usyk might take on a former champ like Andy Ruiz. But I really believe that this fight's not possible, because I think if Usyk comes out of the rematch as the unified champ still, and he doesn't get whoever the WBC champion is, I think he's just going to make mandatory defenses, to be honest. I think he'll fight Trevor Bryan. I think he'll fight whoever the IBF mandatory challenger is, just to hold on to those belts. I don't think he wants to lose those belts unless it's a major fight. And I'm sorry, it's just not with Andy Ruiz, unless he's one of the mandatories, which I don't think he will be. So I don't see this fight. I don't know if Andy Ruiz is going to still be in the top 5 or one of the top dogs if he runs into Luis Ortiz anyways. But if he does and he beats him, I'm not sure it's possible, just because, I do think Usyk is going to go after whoever is the WBC champion, whoever might be the WBC champion, following the Wilder Fury 3 and then the winner fighting Dillian White. I think he'd much prefer to go that route if he's going to give up belts. I don't know if Andy Ruiz is a big enough name Plus, PBC working with Matchroom again, so it's a tough fight. Speaking of Luis Ortiz, he's next. If Luis Ortiz comes out of the smoke of Andy Ruiz and he's not a mandatory challenger for one of those two belts, I think it's possible. I don't think it would be possible, but I'm not saying it's a fight that Usyk wouldn't completely ignore, but I don't think he'd take it. You know, I think he'd look at it like, Wilder already knocked this guy out twice. I have other options, or I have mandatories to hold on to my belt. I'll wait around for it. But if Luis Ortiz and the PBC are smart, they'll get maybe one of those mandatory one of those mandatories down. Like, why not? You know, get your guy a mandatory title shot. That makes a ton of sense to get Ortiz back in the mix. He's a popular fighter, he hits hard, and he's dangerous. So I think it makes a lot of sense. But I don't see it in 2022, Usyk and Ortiz. Next up, Joseph Parker. I don't think Parker's going to be the WBO mandatory. If he were to get into the IBF and secure a final eliminator there, then I think it could be possible for the second half of next year. But as of right now, I'm going to lean towards the no. I don't see it. But it doesn't mean it's not possible. I think Parker's going to beat Derek Chisora at the end of the year. They're fighting in December. And then if Parker's smart, he tries to get a mandatory in the first half of next year. Maybe he tries to get Trevor Bryan in the ring. Maybe he tries to get, the IBF mandatory locked up so he could fight the champion in the second half of the year. So it's possible. I don't think it's going to happen, but it definitely is possible. Next, Michael Hunter. Again, another fight. Michael Hunter's going to have to mandate this fight. If Usyk's coming out of two back-to-back wins over Anthony Joshua, he's going to want to fight a big name, or he's going to want to fight a mandatory challenger. You know, Michael Hunter backed out of the mandatory title fight with Filip Hrgovic. He had an opportunity to get that locked up, and he decided to go against it. So now he's a free agent, but he's not really going to be in a guy like Usyk's craw if he doesn't mandate the fight. So as of right now, I'm going to say no. I don't think it's possible for 2022. Now you got the three that are tied for 10th. You got Derek Chisora. I don't see it. I think he's going to lose to Joseph Parker. It would be a rematch anyway, and I don't think Usyk would be interested unless it was a mandatory fight. And I still don't think he might be interested. So I'm going to say no. Joe Joyce is another guy that can mandate the fight, by getting into an eliminator. But I don't think it's a guy Usyk's going to be knocking on the door to fight. He's not a big name. He'd be dangerous. I don't think Usyk's going to be knocking on the door to fight him unless he's a mandatory in the second half of next year. And then finally, Otto Wallen. I think Otto Wallen's going to lose to Dillian White, but I think he has an opportunity to beat him. But I don't see Otto Wallen beating the winner of Fury and Wilder, so I don't think Wallen's going to get there. So I don't see that being an option for Usyk. So basically, at the end of the day, if Usyk comes out of the fights with the second fight with Anthony Joshua as the victor again and as the unified champion, I think it's one of two options. I think he's going to fight whoever the WBC champion is going to be his main option. So that's either going to be Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, or Dillian White, because they're fighting each other. And if Usyk and Joshua fight in a rematch, the WBC is going to order Dillian White to fight the winner of Fury and Wilder 3. So whoever comes out of that, as of right now, I'd say Fury, but I'd say Deontay Wilder would be the second one. I think that's going to be who Usyk wants to fight in the second half of next year. But if Usyk, if the fight, say, can't be made for whatever reason, I think he's just going to make mandatory defenses. I think he'll fight whoever the WBA regular champion is, or he'll fight his IBF mandatory in the second half of the year. But again, I don't think he's going to just fight dangerous guys that unless they're mandatory challengers. So that's the position he's in, and that's what happens when you're a unified champion. It's very hard to hold on to the belts, without having to make mandatories. So that's it. That's what's next on the undefeated unified heavyweight champion of the world, Oleksandr Usyk, following his career best win over Anthony Joshua as he puts himself right behind Canelo on the pound-for-pound list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.